violence involving James Comey, the former FBI director, has been indicted on federal charges of obstruction and making a false statement during Senate testimony 5 years ago. The case is raising a lot of questions and concerns because the indictment comes after President Trump pressured Attorney General Pam Bondi to go after some of his political opponents. Joining us now is Ankush Khardori, a former federal prosecutor with the Justice Department. He's now a senior writer at Politico. Thank you so much for joining us to share your expertise. So there's been a lot of rapid reporting on this story. Comey is the first former FBI director to face federal indictment for testimony to Congress. Walk us through the likely steps of this case, when we will first see a significant, the first significant court proceeding here.
So the first significant court proceeding will be Comey's arraignment that is currently scheduled for October 9th. Whether there's interim sort of administrative stuff that happens in between now and then, it's not particularly important. But that's when Comey will be in court. Presumably he will plead not guilty, and then we will then hopefully get some sense of the schedule in the case, including potential pretrial motions, discovery if Comey wants it, and then perhaps even a trial date, since this is not a terribly complicated case, and Comey may want a relatively quick trial.
Let's get to the substance of this, at the heart of the matter. The two charges, they carry up to 5 years in prison. What do prosecutors have to prove here?
Okay, so this is a very good question, because what the government has alleged is that Comey made at least one inaccurate claim to Ted Cruz, and apparently Ted Cruz is what this all concerns, an exchange with Ted Cruz at a hearing. But it's not sufficient for the government to just say, okay, something that you said to Congress was wrong. The government has to establish that that was a actually false statement, that it was intentionally made, and that it was material to Congress's investigation. Those are the key elements that the DOJ is going to have to establish here, and those could be tricky for a variety of reasons given the nature of the facts here, and I expect that Comey will contest all of those elements. I think if the reporting about what the case is based on is accurate, that it concerns that exchange with Cruz, I expect Comey will argue that his statements to Cruz were not false, and that even if they were not intentionally false or material to Congress's investigation.
And what are some of the past controversies that will be revisited as they go through this case?
Well, look, multiple controversies. First, there's the procedural controversy concerning how this case came about in the first place, right? Then there's sorry, I just had a little someone in my ear. There's the question about the procedural steps that brought us here, and the highly unusual nature of Trump firing a U.S. attorney who wouldn't bring this case, and then installing a personal lawyer with no criminal experience to present it to the grand jury and obtain a conviction, obtain an indictment. So I will expect that that relatively recent episode in our history, Comey and his lawyers will want to present to the judge and perhaps even the jury as reasons to dismiss the case or to render a not guilty verdict. More broadly speaking, the case is about, really, if we drill down to the heart of it, it's really amazing to say, it concerns the 2016 election and what happened surrounding the FBI's handling of various investigations and tips, and potentially whether there were authorized leaks to the press during that whole affair. And then from there we get to, on top of that, testimony that Comey provided to Congress in 2020 that is now at issue. But that all concerns all of this stuff going back nearly a decade. So I think a lot of us hoped that we could be done with the 2016 election and the investigations and political controversies surrounding that, and that have spun off from the 2016 election. But Trump has ensured that that is not the case, and will be dealing with it once again.
I know his lawyers are likely to file a motion to dismiss, and they probably can point to the political pressure, pointing to the timeline of events for when these charges were finally brought. What's the likelihood in your, from your point of view, that this case will survive?
I think the odds are pretty good that the case will survive pretrial motions. The reason I say that is, though, even though I think Comey has an unusually strong claim for selective prosecution, given the highly public nature of Trump's intervention here, it's hard to establish a selective prosecution, because you also have to show not only that you were sort of picked out for improper purposes, but also that other people have not been charged for similar conduct. And of course, plenty of people have been charged with lying to Congress. So that actually, as a practical matter, is a very, very high burden. But I do expect Comey will pursue it, at least thematically, because it can be helpful thematically, even if the motion fails. It's generally hard to win pretrial motions to dismiss cases, federal criminal cases. So I think it's fair to assume that Comey will and his lawyers will mount sort of assertive efforts to try to get the case dismissed. But more likely than not, I think those efforts will probably be denied. But nothing is a foregone conclusion here. All of this is unprecedented, legitimately.
What's the timeline for a case like this? What do you suspect?
Yeah, so first of all, this is Eastern District of Virginia, where I spent some time prosecuting some cases as well. It's known as the Rocket Docket for good reason. Judges like to move those cases quickly. And Comey has a speedy trial right here, too, if he wants to move this case quickly. So I think this case, depending on how quickly Comey wants it to move, we could see a trial, and assuming the judges dismiss the case, we could see a trial within the next 6 months, perhaps even sooner. Because this is just a false statements case. It's a fairly simple case as a prosecutorial matter, and mechanically as a prosecutorial matter. It's not something that needs to drag out for years.
And do you think the success or the failure of this case and how it moves through the court could determine whether the president has future success in going after his other perceived enemies?
I doubt it, to be honest. This is not the first time that Trump has effectively engineered a prosecution of people he dislikes. There was a whole special counsel case involving John Durham, who was also investigating the activity around the law enforcement activity around the 2016 election, and did not turn up any charges against Comey. Nevertheless, Durham brought 2 false statements cases against people in the course of that investigation, with Trump really, really hyped up. And one of those prosecutions was brought in the Eastern District of Virginia. Both of those defendants were acquitted. And Trump didn't care, right? None of this has deterred Trump from wanting to pursue these people. He seems to think every time he loses that he can create sort of another layer of internal deep state resistance or whatever. So every single time something flops, he then claims that the person is incompetent or we're secretly against them or something. So this is one of the things that, despite the fact that I think it's not a very popular endeavor that Trump is pursuing, he seems personally committed to, regardless of the political cost.
Wow, a lot of great information. Thank you so much for joining me today. Ankush Khardori, former federal prosecutor with the Justice Department and senior writer for Politico. We appreciate your time.